Good morning,
Good
guys.
morning, everyone.
I was alone yesterday.
I missed you
I was all
yesterday.
by myself yesterday.
Sorry, guys.
But she's back in the saddle. It's just different. It's just different when I'm alone. But good morning to you all on Facebook and YouTube Live. Good to have you for another phenomenal morning. Isn't it a good day?
It's a good day.
So listen.
This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad.
And we're going to rejoice by diving into today's topic. Listen, guys, today we're talking about the importance of understanding and meeting your wife's needs. I can't tell you how
I like
critically
that it's about meeting the wife's needs.
It's about you today.
Right.
It's about you today.
I'm so excited about this.
Because we need to place you first in our lives.
Right.
And I think one of the problems is we have taken our spouse and we have not prioritized them. We've prioritized our friends. We've prioritized our hobbies. We prioritize family and everything else. And our spouse, whatever. We take for granted what role you play in our lives.
Maybe because you think we'll always be there.
Maybe so.
We're not going nowhere. We're committed. We're a dutiful wife. We know that you can count on us. So maybe that's why sometimes you just, don't prioritize us.
It could be that. And I think, because we take you for granted, we don't focus on what it is that you need to make you happy. Because a lot of times as men, and I can't speak about all men, we think that you have a role, a duty, and a responsibility to serve us because you're our wife. I had to learn the difference between looking at you as my wife and my woman. As long as you're my wife, then you have a responsibility to feed me, sex me, make sure my house is taken care of. That's your responsibility.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
You know what? Here's the deal. Like hearing you say that sounds so archaic.
Good morning, Nigel.
Hi, Nigel. I know what you mean, though, but I think that we women, we don't think like this. We don't think it's my responsibility to feed and sex and all of that stuff. This is a joint thing, right? So I think it's our responsibility to take care of each other. But because wives always do that, we jump to taking care, we jump to the cooking, we jump to the tending to issues, that it can become one-sided. I certainly don't think most women walk into a marriage thinking it's my duty. I've got to sex. I've got to cook. I've got to,
I don't know.
Not today.
But the thing is, men, a lot of us grow up with this thinking that you're the role of marriage. We're the head. It's all about us, and you support and accommodate whatever it is that we want. And the script handed down.
I'm so glad you don't think like that.
Hey, but listen, the script handed down to a lot of women is your job is to serve your spouse and serve your children, and put your dreams, your hopes, your desires, and everything else on the side. And so we've done marriage wrong, right? We're here to talk about what we need to do to get things back in order. Good morning, from Nigeria. Our family love you. Good morning, man. There it is. So people are calling in, people are chiming in. So anyway, but yes, men have needs, women have needs. And so it's important that we, number one, understand the need and then
let's bring
learn
balance
how to
to
meet
it. Let's bring balance to it, because to your point, a lot of women are groomed and raised to believe, to become a wife, but it's like our signals are crossed, because not only are we told, okay, you're going to be a wife and a mother and take care of your husband and whatever duties come along with that, but we're also now groomed and raised to become successful businesswomen, entrepreneurs, get educated, all these things. And so there is a lot on the shoulders of a woman. So let's bring some balance to this, and let's teach these men out here how to acknowledge and serve their wives.
There it is. Good morning, Ivy. She's a new viewer. Well, we appreciate you being here. We think that way because our grandmothers did that. Our parents have functioned that way too. That's true. It's been passed down.
Some of us, many of us, that's not the case. Many of us haven't.
Morning, Sandy.
Been taught and groomed that way because we didn't see grandmother, because grandmother was single and then mother was single. And so, there's just a lot of cross signals and confusion out there. For those women that did have that example and they saw their grandmother serving dad and getting the plate and eating last and sitting at the child table and stuff like that, I could see how that would be picked up and you just follow suit. But there's a lot of women out there that we never saw an image of that. So we had to learn as we went along. Okay, how do I be a wife successfully? How do I be a mother successfully? How do I be successful in business all at the same time? How do I do all these things? And it creates a lot of stress and pressure on us as women when we don't have supportive husbands that make it their focus also to meet our needs.
Yeah. But we're talking about meeting needs today. So let's get back on track, because we are here as men to serve our wives. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the importance of women, wives serving their husband. It is a mutual thing. It is a joint thing. And when we both do this, our needs are met. We feel fulfilled in a relationship. We don't feel like we're being deprived. We don't feel like we're being taken advantage of. So let's dig into it. We've discovered that there are 4 essential needs. Now, not to say that there are only 4, but we're talking about the 4 essential needs that wives have. And the first need is the need for security, right?
Yes.
Security is an important need for a woman, but because you're a woman, unpack it.
Yeah. I mean, so because of, again, this day and age, women have that need for security, but we're either going to trust our husbands to support us and help us bring about that security, or we're going to go do it ourselves. And I think that, and that's just how we've been groomed and raised to do it. I think that for most women, if you are in charge of the finances, or if you're going to be the one to bring in the food and the bread and the water and all that stuff, and she's going to be on the other side of that being a housewife, which is so, to me, archaic just saying that, then yes, a woman is going to expect for you to hold up that end of the bargain. But I think in today's, today we're splitting it. We're going 50-50. We're going half on responsibilities. And unfortunately, a lot of women are not able to trust their husbands to bring that financial security, which is such a need. So she goes out and does it herself.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of us as men, we're in a different society today. We used to say this all the time. There's been a role reversal. There's been a switch. There was a time when there was nothing more than a lot of pretty women and working men. But unfortunately, in today's society, we're seeing a whole lot of pretty men and working women. We've switched roles. And that role reversal has impacted our relationships and our marriage. But the need for security that women have is still there. And it requires that we as men learn how to be selfless and sacrificial. That once we say I do, and we bring a woman into our lives, and then there's children to consider, our role has to be serving them and putting a lot of times our interests and our passions and desires in its proper order so that our home is taken care of. So security is critically important in a relationship. The second emotional need that we must understand and meet is the need for soft, non-sexual affection.
That is absolutely, I mean, listen, we're all different, right? So I know a lot of women who I talk to who say, listen, no, I need sex every day, all day. But for most of us,
not that there's anything wrong with it.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but for most of us, affection is the entryway for all of that sex and desire. That if we are left without any affection, not connecting intimately, and there's more than just physical ways to connect. Rubbing on shoulders might be somebody's way of connecting, but you can connect and be affectionate by sending a beautiful note, a loving letter, an email. There's a lot of ways to show your affection, so that the doors of sex open up more easily. It's very, very, very important because we're so mental. We're emotional and mental. So if you don't have my mind, you really don't have my body.
And it's important to realize that affection means something different, right? For each person.
Yeah.
And I think that if we go in with our own idea and our own concept, we may miss the mark because the way our partner describes it is different than how we sense it. For instance, a book that I'm sure many of you are familiar with are the 5 love languages. It talks about affection.
Please learn how to meet their needs.
And it quality time, words of affirmation, the giving of gifts, non-sexual touch, and what is it? Acts of service. If I didn't say that already.
Did you say quality time?
Quality time, yes.
Yeah.
Those are the 5. So if Danielle receives affection through words, then I could do all the touching in the world. I'm not meeting her needs. She's like, that's nice, but that's your thing. I need you to compliment me, affirm me, acknowledge me, edify me.
And that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't like touch, or some folks don't. I mean, my daughter doesn't. My mother never liked anybody rubbing. She don't even like massages. So you can see how if your spouse is a touchy-feely person and you're not, how that person could really not feel like their needs are being met. So just figure out what your partner's needs are and meet those non-sexual needs first for her so that she'll be more open to having actual physical.
That's right. Several people said flowers. I mean, even if it's just giving your spouse flowers, if that's what they need, if that's their form of affection, give it to them. The third need that husbands need to understand and meet in their spouse is the importance of open and honest communication. I think one of the biggest things that men struggle with is the inability to effectively communicate, which can shut down a healthy relationship. Communication is the foundation, the crux, the core of all relationships.
Just talk.
Open up your mouth.
A lot of times men just don't talk. It's not like they're sitting there with nothing on their minds. And women are always like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? We're digging, we're prying, we're trying, we got a shovel and a jackhammer to get through to your emotions, to understand how you truly feel about something or how you think. And here's a tip, because understanding your partner's personality type can really be helpful with this, because certain words people just don't resonate with. If I'm a thinking type of person, if I'm always in my mind about things, for you to ask me, how do you feel today? Isn't going to resonate with me as much as how do you think about this, even if it's heart matters. So we talk through our lenses and how we perceive the world, just like how we experience love through our specific love language. We also communicate through specific lenses. So we need to know, how do I communicate with this person to get them to open up? But yes, men, we want to know what's going on in your heart and mind. We want to know when you're having a hard time struggling with something, because when you tell us, then we jump into action. We start to build you up, remind you who you are. A lot of times men, when they feel discouraged, they keep it to themselves and they don't share these things because they don't want to feel inferior or weak. And it's our role, and we love to jump in there and build you up and remind you of the power of God in you and all that God has done for you and who you are and all of that. So open your mouth and bring us into the conversation. We got your back.
I think a lot of men grew up in households where they didn't necessarily see their father communicate, and they have mirrored what has been modeled for them. Like the only time dad spoke is when, he had something powerful to say and he was mean and he was angry and he was stern. And well, that's not something good to emulate. You've got to be able to talk, because to Danielle's point, how can women ever meet a man's needs if a man doesn't clearly articulate what they are? And vice versa. So we've got to be able to communicate. We got to be able to pour out. We have to be able to get naked. And I'm not talking about physically naked, guys. I'm talking about becoming emotionally naked. Okay. When you become vulnerable and transparent, and you become sincere and share what's going on in your heart and in your mind. Darren says, what about when there's been infidelity and you feel your wife's and or husband's mind is affected, and even putting them first doesn't seem enough anymore?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a serious topic, and we're going to dedicate a whole lot of time to that because we're infidelity recovery specialists. But let me tell you something: when you've struggled with an affair, it's even more important to effectively communicate. I think that is the most important issue that will allow you to overcome the challenges that you're experiencing. A lot of times, people are holding on to so much hurt and so much pain, and there's such a disconnect. And it is your ability to talk about difficult conversations and be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because a lot of times when an affair occurs, that's the main topic of discussion. Because enough needs to be unpacked and rolled over, sometimes 1,000 times, 1,000 questions asked in 1,000 different ways to get clarity, because people are just stuck.
And the fact is that after the affair, the mind actually is affected. So it's not perceived. It's actually truly that person's mind is affected. And even if they are the person that did the cheating, they're really going through some things. They have their own journey of hurt and pain that they need to recover from. And a lot of it stems from guilt. A lot of it stems from shame and all of that. The thoughts and the memories that they're contending with. There's also the issue of whatever that they were engaged in, that they were experiencing, whether they're comparing it with their spouse or not. There's that whole mind game going on. So there's a lot that has to be unpacked when it comes to the infidelity piece. But you're absolutely right regarding it being a mind thing. Like sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, because that person is someplace else because of what they've done.
Yeah, we have many comments coming in now. Men process differently. That's very true. We do process differently, and we need to understand how our spouse processes so that these differences don't cause more problems in the relationship. Open up your mouth, say what's on your mind. That's very true. Men, we need to start talking. And if you struggle knowing what to say throughout the course of the day, write something down. Get your thoughts out on paper. Some people have a struggle articulating in the moment, and so they may need to process by writing things down.
And can I just say this, men, and I can say this and not indict my husband, though he's a man. He has very many manly qualities that we work on every day, right? But I have 3 brothers, so I've been around men my whole life. And one thing that I see just working in this business, and I've observed over years, is that men find a way to bury their heads in things, right? So because they don't know how to communicate, they will bury their heads in work, in, working out, whatever their recreation is. Video games. Thank you. Video games.
Yeah.
Just whatever it is that is outside of what's important, like your children, your wife, communicating, talking, spending quality time. Like, pull your head up out the sand, please, because you have a wife there that's looking at you and wanting to get you out and connect with you. And you're so busy. I'm busy working. I'm busy in the video games. I need my time. And it's just like, well, when do you come out of the hole? Like, when you come home, you need time to unwind. When when you're working, you're too darn busy. Meanwhile, women, we multitask and we talking, vacuuming, working, talking to you. Like, we got to meet in the middle somewhere.
It's been said that, unfortunately, men don't do relationships. We do sports, we do hobbies, we do extracurricular, we do projects, and because they're very task oriented, it's almost like a one-man sport, or I can socially congregate with other people. But when I have to sit down and play this relationship emotional game, that's something I'm not used to, because we've been raised and acculturated and indoctrinated to believe that men don't have emotions, or we need to suppress them. When you were a boy and you started to tear up, somebody said, "Don't cry, you're a boy, stop doing that. That's what girls do. That's soft, that's weak, that's this." And so it's a lot of times it's a misunderstanding of what masculinity really is. For some people, it's toxic masculinity. It's all a host of things. So we have to learn how to do life, how to tap into the innermost essence of who we are, and how to connect with our wives. Is critically important.
It is.
Many more comments. Good morning from California. Great question, Darren. People are honoring your question, Darren, because it's a very important one.
Yeah.
I know I have often forgotten to build up my spouse and only focus on the negative. A lot of times that's exactly what we do. It's so easy to point out what's wrong than to acknowledge what is good, what is right.
Because you're frustrated. It's just like you sitting here looking at you, and we talked about this on the Fortified Women show, the superior wife syndrome. You're so busy looking at how you're able to multitask and do all these things, and all you asking for your husband to do is come and have a conversation and hold your hand. And it's just so frustrating. But what we don't want to do is empower those negative attributes in your spouse to grow up and become strong by speaking to it. That's really what we do. When we start speaking out about our spouse's negative points, it's almost like we strengthen them and water it with our words, and those things grow up and become strong. Instead, we want to focus on the quality things, the good things, and speak to those so that we grow those things up strong and they overpower the weak things.
There it is.
Because we're always going to have weak things. All of us are always going to have weaknesses. We have to, as wives, discipline ourselves to not, encourage the negative by speaking to it.
That's right. Edwina says gym, work, going out, video games, sports, distractions. That's right. She's just reiterating the point that we were just making.
Exactly.
Heather, number 2, they do these every morning, right? For some people, it's a ritual. Listen, a lot of times people live life by distraction and not by design. And when you're used to living your life by distraction, and I'm gonna go my way and she gonna go her way, and we'll get together whenever we need to get together, that's creating that emotional disconnect. There's no harmony, there's no connection, there's no oneness in the relationship. And that's how these relationships ultimately fall apart. And so it's important that you meet the need of communication, because that is connection.
Yes.
Women have a need to connect.
Yeah, I want to connect with my husband. I want to laugh with him. I want to bug out and hang out and have coffee and talk to him. But guess what, women? You know good and well that if we can't find that connection with our husband, we'll find it elsewhere. And I'm not talking about infidelity. You'll have your best friend, and that's the person that you talk to and you tell all the stories to and you do all the connecting to, because you just can't connect to him. Husbands, we want to be able to connect to you. Just open up to us. We are connecting people.
That's right.
It's so easy for us to do. If you put a whole bunch of women in the room, for the most part, give us 20 minutes. We're all going to be talking together, hugging and crying. We might even get naked together and try on each other's clothes. That's how connecting women are. Men don't do that. But you guys you have a wife though. If you want a wife, You got to learn how to play in your wife's playground if you want to connect with her.
Powerful point. Wow. Our culture and how we are raised as African males is a problem. We're taught that vulnerability to any woman is weakness.
Wow.
How do we unlearn this? From Johannesburg, South Africa. Good to see you.
That is such great insight.
That's true. As I said, we've been raised wrong. And so, listen.
Would you compare it to here, though? Like, wouldn't you say it's similar here? It's not a South African thing necessarily.
We counsel people in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in South America, in the United States, in the Caribbean. And I would say collectively, men are raised that way. We're not raised to tap into our emotions. We say this all the time. Men and women have the same number of emotions, but we manage them differently. And the way that we manage them is the way that we've been trained and acculturated in society. So we suppress that side of ourselves, and it's toxic masculinity. And so how do we unlearn that? By making the decision. See, when you learn something, you have to realize that sometimes you have to unlearn what it is that you've always believed to be true, because these new teachings will conflict. Like, for instance, there was a time when we were taught that the earth was flat. Then somebody came along and said, no, not true. The earth is actually round. So we had to give up one belief in order to embrace another. And so sometimes you have to give yourself permission to divorce yourself from certain beliefs, certain ideas, certain concepts and convictions that you've held on to for so long that do not serve you and do not serve your marriage. And so some things are a quick self-awareness, a self-check. You're like, aha, I get it now. And you move in that direction. Other things you've been doing habitually, you've been doing instinctually, and it's going to require a process of time. And if you give yourself time and you're intentional on consciously being aware of what works and doesn't work, it's two things. You have to focus on the right thing to do, and you also have to focus on no longer doing the wrong thing. It's two things. When you do both, then you're able to create a new habit and you create a new pattern. So hopefully that helped. A great question. April, good morning from Georgia. Good to see you. Preach, Danielle. So true.
I'm preaching.
She's preaching. Heather Jones. I was letting my friend know that you do these videos every morning. Thank you. Continue to let people know. We are on Facebook every morning. We are on YouTube every morning. Please go to the Couples Academy YouTube page and subscribe, because outside of these morning sessions, we also have a lot of content that we put online. We have over, I think, 200 videos. So continue to tune in, because we believe in giving people exactly what they need to take their relationship to the next level. So true. All right. Set a reminder in the phone to praise your spouse via text during lunch.
That's great, Heather.
Totally agree. Do you realize that only 1%? Good morning from San Antonio, Texas. Tiana. Do you know that only 1% of the couples we work with actually follow that very tip? We say, take out your iPhone. If you have an Android, I'm sorry for your loss, but take out your iPhone and set up your alarm. You can label your alarm. The alarm goes off at 6 in the morning. It rings and it says, kiss Danielle. Okay. At 12 o'clock while I'm at work, it says, text Danielle. Hey, babe, how you doing? Just checking in on you. Just want to let you know I love you. Come home from work, 6 p.m. Hug Danielle. Okay. Now, some would say, well, that's not genuine. That's not authentic. That's not sincere. Why would you have to have a reminder of how to love your spouse? Well, the brain wasn't meant to memorize, number one. And number two, her needs are my needs. So if her needs are not my needs, what is wrong with setting up a system of accountability that reminds you on what your spouse needs and you take the time to give it to them? Now,
truth be told, when I found out he was doing that and had a reminder, I thought that was so weird. I found out like this, like we were on a show, like doing this, and he actually said it at the interview that he did that. And I was like, you do? So I didn't even know that he was doing that when he would come and do certain things to me. But I mean, I didn't never need to know, but it didn't bother me knowing that he had been that intentional to set a reminder to make sure that he met my need. See, we could get caught up in foolishness like, oh, he's not genuine because he has to set a reminder, or we could look at the heart behind the matter. The fact is that he can't remember, so he set a timer to make sure that it happens. what can I say about that?
What can you say about that?
Wow, that's sweet.
It's my birthday today, and my wife pulled the stops to make it memorable. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We love to hear that. If you have birthdays or anniversaries, we just want to acknowledge you. And that's a time to express powerful love for each other.
Yes.
I love these daily live videos, so helpful and relevant. Well, we love that you love it.
Thank you.
How about that? I have to do this, and that's exactly what my husband says. That's it. Not genuine. Laugh out loud. Yeah. No, but it is genuine. You're genuinely doing what you need to do to make it happen. That's all. And that's all that really matters. That's right. Yes. Love this. It is time to take our relationship to the next level. Relationships and families are under attack. This talk is very refreshing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Listen, let's get to the last emotional need that women have. I'm sorry, we've just been running, but it's been so good. The last emotional need of women is the need for leadership. Our wives need us to take the lead. And guess what, men? You can't, when I hear men say, oh, well, you know, I'm just laid back, you know, I'm just going to relax. You can't lead from the back. You have to lead from the front.
Yeah.
You have to know the way, go the way, and then show the way. Meaning you have to be the example. You have to be the model. You have to be the one that takes the lead, because that's also a part of the security that our wives are looking for. So there's a number of areas where men can take the lead. One of the areas, and I know a lot of men struggle with this, and we're still working on this, leading with the children. How, like, women usually are the primary caretakers, providers, nurturers, chefs, all things required to take care of those children.
Yeah, I would say, you know, there are certain aspects of leadership with the children that a woman would want to see. Like, I want to see spiritual leadership with the children. I don't necessarily need you to lead in other areas, taking care of their actual personal needs and clothing and whatever it is that kids need on a day-to-day basis. I got that. You know, there are certain areas where I do want my husband to fall back. I got this. Let me handle it. But the areas that I want him to lead, I really want him to lead. Like, if this is your domain, lead in that domain. If you're going to be a shepherd over this family and lead in the spiritual things, then lead in the spiritual things. Lead me too, because I'll follow you there. Lead our children.
Playing with the kids, spending time with the kids, connecting with the kids.
Yes.
The spiritual leadership piece is so important, Danielle, because a lot of time, like when we first got married, the expectation that Danielle had was that we were going to pray every morning and hold hands. And I grew up in a religious household, but I didn't necessarily see that every day. So it wasn't even in my mind necessarily. Like, of course, it's important and we want to do that, but that wasn't what I came in with. You know, but the idea of leading a Bible study and leading a conversation on biblical matters or leading the prayer, I didn't have a problem with it, but it just wasn't what I was
right. And not necessarily always leading, because, you know, we got a lot of powerhouse prayers with wives that will pray the house up and down and all around. Yours truly is one of them. I'll come out with some oil and anoint everything and cast every spirit out of here and sweep this house clean. However, I do want him to initiate, you know, spiritual leadership. I think that's more what it is. As far as leadership is concerned, there is a part of leadership that is about initiating and taking control and having a plan. Not all leaders facilitate and do everything. But the leader has the plan and the vision that I can follow. So you could say, hey, this is the plan. This is the vision. Can you pray? Yes, got you praying. But there's a leadership there.
And on that note, when you think about a CEO, a manager, an executive director of a company, they're the leader, if you will, of the organization. But it doesn't mean that they know everything. Doesn't mean that they can do everything. They know how to properly select a team that has skills and competencies that move that organization forward. So a lot of times, a lot of men have this know-it-all, big head-minded philosophy. I'm the man, and it's got to be done my way, because we're married to our methods. And just because you are a male, it doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're a male doesn't mean you know everything. You've got to understand that there's value in gifts and attributes in your spouse that you need to honor. And guess what? Maybe there's certain areas that she's skilled in that you give her the room to take the lead, because that is what she does best.
Yeah.
So it's a partnership.
Right. Think about finances. Like, if you're not good at finances, please get out the way and let your wife handle the finances. But that doesn't mean that you can't have leadership in that. That means that you're going to say, okay, as the head of the house, I say you should do the finances. This is where your skills lie.
That's right.
And we're going to just come together and I'm going to want to know what's going on. You don't take a back seat and disappear from important parts of your marriage and your relationship. You are still there. You're still present. You're still very much involved, but you feel comfortable because of your leadership and you know your position and you're handling what you handle, to allow your wife, I shouldn't even say allow, right? To partner with your wife in certain things so that she is able to do what she's gifted in. And I think that there are so many other areas that leadership needs to show up in our homes as it relates to what men could do. And a part of that is us wives. A lot of times we just take over, like, because we're so used to doing everything. And if we don't have a man that has strong leadership skills in him, that knows how to take his rightful place, a woman will railroad you
sure enough
and do everything for herself, and you sitting there feeling like you don't even have a place. So there's a lot of room for men to step up in that area.
So leaders, men leaders, because it should be synonymous. Take the lead, be an example, lead by serving. These are all the things you need to do to meet your spouse's needs.
I want to acknowledge Dava, Sharon. We just celebrated 28 years Saturday, and we are so grateful to you both for teaching us new things, new concepts, new behaviors to make us stronger. So congratulations.
All right, guys, we love you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Gotta
Tune in. Gotta go. Good day.